Through the Looking Glass Part 1 Chapter 13, A New Beginning.
Robotic? You heard of him or something?
Shadow ignored the skeptical look the blue hedgehog was giving him. He couldn't concentrate. The name just kept repeating in his brain over and over. Robotnik, 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 Robotnik. It was almost like the name was a big piece of the puzzle. Shadow never told Wade, but he still struggled with gaps in his memory. Sure, he remembered some of the experiments, being held captive, and Maria, but there were other things in his memory that had loose ends or could never be explained. Like the Chaos Emerald. He remembered it gave him some sort of power, but that's it. He couldn't picture what it looked like or what he could do with it. He remembers Maria's grandfather. He created Shadow and looked after him and Maria. But that was it. Everything else about him was vague. Robotnik, the name echoed in his brain and things began to fall into place. Wade watched as Shadow froze and dropped his fork. The look on his face when Tails said Robotnik's name shocked him. He's never seen the hedgehog so upset. What was wrong?
Shadow? Are you okay?
Wade faced the kid. He didn't answer. He could see him begin to shake. This wasn't good. Wade placed his hand on Shadow's shoulder.
Hey kid, everything alright?
Usually, he wouldn't do this in front of everyone, but something about this situation felt different. Sure, he'd seen Shadow have a panic attack before, but this wasn't like those. The kid never answered his question. Shadow forcibly removed Wade's hand off of his shoulder. He's never done that before. Wade was shocked and confused. He watched as the kid pushed back his chair.
I'll be in the bathroom,
Was all he said before hopping out of the chair and walking away. Wade's eyes followed him all the way until a wall blocks him. He heard the bathroom door shut and lock. Wade could feel eyes on him. He turned back to the table to see the whole Wachowski family staring at him with confusion on their faces. What was he supposed to tell them? He didn't know what was going on either. In the bathroom, Shadow couldn't catch his breath. It was like every time he tried, a new memory flooded his brain and punched the air out of his lungs. He was curled up in a corner of the room. His hands gripped his fur and quills so tight that with one movement he could probably tear a chunk out. He missed Maria. He missed Gerald. They were his family. They were everything for him. How could he forget about his own father? Sure, the man didn't give birth to him, but he made him, and Shadow was so easily ready to replace him. So ready to move on when he didn't deserve to. He didn't deserve this stupid peaceful life, living in Wade's home. He may not be a monster, but he was definitely a coward who couldn't protect his family, his real family. All he ever did was run from his problems. He never fought them head on. Shadow sat like that for a while, curled up with tears reaching his eyes. Once he was able to control his breathing, he could hear shush yelling coming from the kitchen. They all must be asking Wade why Shadow ran off. He kind of felt bad for the man. A night that was supposed to be simple and full of food was not an interrogation. As Shadow stood up from his spot in the corner, he planned on splashing some water on his face and acting as if nothing happened. But he felt it again, that pull. He now knew why it was so familiar. It was the same energy the Chaos Emeralds gave off. And it was somewhere in this house. He was tempted to go search for it. It would help him no longer feel so trapped and powerless. But he couldn't. At least not now. He was already gone for far too long. Soon someone would try and check on him. And he was sure whoever it was wouldn't appreciate it to find him stealing. So for now, he'll have to wait. But he will get the Chaos Emerald. He had to. Shadow almost jumped at the knock on the door.
Hey kid, you good in there?
It was Wade. To be fair, Shadow didn't really expect anyone else.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
He proceeded to splash some water on his face and take a few breaths before opening the door. He looked at Wade's face. The man looked so concerned for him. Shadow just wanted to hug him and tell him everything. That was just the effect Wade had on him. But part of his brain told him not to. He wasn't trying to replace Gerald. He didn't want to replace Gerald. That was his father, his only father. That's how it had to be. If he moved on, it'd be like forgetting the man ever existed. Right? Shadow felt Wade placed a hand on her shoulder.
Hey, whatever it is, kid, just know that I'm here for you. You don't have to tell me everything or anything at all, but I'm here for you.
The soft smile on his face showed Shadow how sincere he was, but that just made him feel more lost. Shadow nodded and the two walked back to the table. As expected, all eyes were on him. Tom was the first to say something.
So what was that about?
His eyes looked between the two of them, waiting for an answer.
I had a panic attack.
Shadow responded stoically. He wasn't in the mood to explain himself to Tom or to anyone really.
That's all?
Yeah.
Shadow sat down and went back to eating the spaghetti, ignoring all the looks he was getting.
Wade?
He heard Maddie ask, probably hoping Wade would elaborate.
As he said, it was a panic attack.
Shadow was grateful that Wade stuck to his story. He didn't have to, but he did anyway. The rest of the dinner was uneventful. Shadow didn't engage in any conversation, even though Wade tried multiple times to include him. He knew at this point he wasn't holding up his part of the deal, but he couldn't really think about that right now. But that did remind him of something. He brought his headphones and CD player. Maybe Wade would let him sit on the couch and let him listen to some music. He turned to Wade.
Can I be excused?
You're done?
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Wade still looked a bit unsure, but then again, Shadow was grateful. He needed to relax and calm down, and music really helped with that. He got out of the chair and walked over to the living room. He sat down on the couch and grabbed his stuff. He looked on the back of the mixtape Wade made him to find a song. Shadow picked track 4, closed his eyes, and relaxed into the couch. Finally, this was exactly what he needed, just to get away. This whole day was just too much. Shadow was tired of always having to reevaluate his life after finally feeling settled. But he never really had a chance to process everything. He never got a chance to deal with his grief, a chance to understand his entire existence. He spent his whole life being something for other people, a weapon, a sibling, a monster, a son. But he still didn't know what he wanted to be. What he wanted to do. He wanted to choose who to be. As the song's instrumentals began to flow, Shadow's thoughts finally cleared. He was finally able to think straight. He wanted to start over, be honest, be upfront with Wade about everything. But no more hiding, no more running away, no more being a coward. He wanted to be himself. When the song was over, Shadow took off his headphones and sat up. He slowly walked back over to the dinner table. Everyone was done by now and just talking. He cleared his throat, hoping to get everyone's attention. At the noise, all their eyes landed on him. He almost forgot about the Wachowskis' tendency to stare.
Shadow?
Wade looked at him with concern. Shadow wanted to so badly just look at the ground and talk, but he knew he had to look people in the eye for this.
First off, I'd just like to say I'm sorry. I know I haven't been the best house guest, even though you've been so gracious to invite me into your home.
Shadow began to fiddle with his hands.
After some thinking, I realized I want to be honest with you. All of you.
At the last part, he looked directly at Wade. Shadow told them everything. He told them about Gunn and being held captive, about how he was created by Jared Robotnik, how he ended up at Wade's house, and how he had gaps in his memories. Okay, yes, he knew that wasn't everything, but the Maria stuff could stay between him and Wade, and he'd tell them about the whole Chaos Emerald thing later. Once he was all done, he took a deep breath and waited for anyone to respond.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah. Shadow couldn't tell if the reaction was bad or good.
Thank you for telling us, Black Hedgehog. That was very brave.
Shadow could tell he was being honest, and it caused a blush to reach his face. He hated to admit it, but this was an enormous weight off of his chest.
Yeah, Shadow, thanks for telling us.
Tails smiled at him, which wasn't helping the blush on his cheeks go away.
Yes, what they said.
To his surprise, Sonic actually said something. Shadow knew they probably were never going to be the best of friends, but that was definitely a start, a real start. Seeing how well everyone was taking stuff made him feel a bit stupid. Not everyone was out to hurt him. Some people, even those who are powerful, aren't all out to get him. Wade was right. So this was the real start of his new beginning.